I'm co-founder of Vista, a brand under Transcending Horizons Private Limited. I hail from Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, from where my broader part of education has been done, and then I moved to Mumbai for my masters. Currently, we are based out in Delhi. Uh, I am married and have a son who's 9 years old. I've done my masters in communications and marketing, and I am an arts graduate with economics as a specialization. Uh, so when we started Finovista, we started to look at a lot of these bilateral relationships between India and UK, a lot of mapping on low carbon growth technologies. And there is when we realize that clean cooking has a very low penetration in India, and this is a very potential sector because it impacts a lot of aspects, whether we talk about gender, whether we talk about energy access, whether we talk about women empowerment, whether we talk about employability and the impact on the economy. From that perspective and the importance that the sector brings in and the impact that can be created, we chose to work in clean cooking as a sector. See, being born and brought up in a tier 2, tier 3 city back then, um, uh, you know, uh, moving on the roads and seeing people cook on biomass cook stoves and the impact of health, the impact on environment, the impact on women who are involved in the cooking activities is something which has been always very close to my heart. And specifically at Finovista, we've been working upon sectors which are not only important for the economy, but we look at the scale of the impact that can be driven out of it. And like I mentioned earlier, clean cooking has multiple linkages, and it's one of the sectors which impacts the largest amount of SDGs when we look at it. So this is one of the key reasons that we've been working in this sector largely, and we've also started to look at a lot of work on energy access, which is very closely linked to it, and development of technology and low carbon growth technologies, which is very much linked to it. I won't say that it is any specific person, but I would say that growing up and working in Finovista and starting this agency with a clear motto that uh, as the name suggests, Finovista, we bring in the aspect of innovation and finance together, and we look at sectors where there can be a good impact. So when again we look at the sector of clean energy, it's of course an emerging sector. From an economy perspective, we see the importance of this sector in India's economy, and we see the realm of new jobs and potential that can be impacted, whether it's jobs at grounds at at the livelihood scale, or whether we are talking about new technologies. There's a scale of impact and new investments that come out to the sector, and yeah, that's a big in, I would say, not getting influence, but a very conscious aspect of working towards this sector and scaling into it. So at Finovista, we've been while we've done a lot of projects on clean energy access, looking at low carbon growth technologies, we focused a lot of our work on clean cooking sector specifically. In that, it's been a very diverse bit of it. We've looked to start with, we've looked at mapping studies where we've seen that what kind of technologies are there in the market, what kind of stakeholders are there which are operating in the market. We've gone ahead and looked at, what are the gaps in technologies and supply chains in this market. How do we link it with entrepreneurship and employment opportunities? We've also gone ahead to look at the impact of clean cooking on gender as users as well as key stakeholders in the entire value chain of clean cooking as a sector. Needless to say that of course nothing comes without work on policy, and there's a lot of work on research aspect that we've done to close in gaps in terms of whatever is needed in clean cooking, whether it's to look at the feasibility of cooking with modern fuels and technologies, whether it's to look at what's the efficiency gains when we replace the old technology with the new one. So it's been a very holistic approach that we've taken, and of course now on we are looking up at how this can be scaled up in India and how can we reach on to the tier 2, tier 3 cities and the rural sector specifically, and open up opportunities of livelihood and impacting the community largely. So I've been a part of such international programs like GWNet, where I've provided mentorship to young professionals, and making them understand that how programmatic approaches can be drawn, and we can look at building up technical proposals and programs for this kind of a sector. And it starts from understanding the dynamics and holistically looking at the clean energy sector in one's country. I think what's very much important in these kinds of initiatives is that it brings women from different countries and geographies together. And that kind of a collaboration is very much important because it also gives a lot of international exposure to the mentor and the mentee itself, where you learn from what's the positive aspects in the successful programs in different countries. Having said that, I very strongly feel that when we look at scaling sector at Finovista only, we've interacted a lot with students from different engineering colleges and hospitality sector specifically, and we see that there's a bit of disconnect as to what's being taught at the academic level and what's actually required in the industry. We also see that there are very different kind of requirements and job roles in the industry, and probably we are teaching the kids from a subject matter perspective, where of course they look at some technical aspects and other things, but when you are implementing and scaling up technologies, there's a lot of economic, social aspect also involved, understanding the user. So like I mentioned ahead, energy is not a subject which can be put in watertight compartments of technology, because there's a user who's using that. So one needs to, if we need to really success in this entire thing, then you need to also understand those aspects also. I think maybe my answer might sound very common, but I think a lot of women might echo the same thought, but the fact that gender representation is very low in energy sector impacts also the women who are part of the energy sector, because the values, perspectives and thought processes are very different. The experiences are very different. I very strongly and firmly believe that a lot of part of energy, when we look at from a user perspective, women are one of the lead users of those technologies, and there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of different sensitivity that comes into subject matter when we look at technologies to be implemented at household and residential level, and that is very different. Of course, the challenges also come from 4 or 5 levels. Do we have the kind of enabling environment and workplace, environment where women feel safe, secure, and their requirements are dealt with? There are challenges with respect that do we have specific programs where we are trying to, bring in women in the ecosystem, and have we thought about those programs holistically? So I feel challenges, of course, are at a multiple level when we look at this thing. If you ask that, how have I, you know, bridged that kind of a gap, I would say that it is still work in progress. I won't say that I have bridged that kind of a gap. As a women entrepreneur specifically, I ensure that in our company itself, we have a fair number of representation of women who are working with us. And we consciously ensure that the percentage is a positive percentage. Uh, of course, that can be something that can be looked holistically at a company level also, and we have to look at from a sector level perspective also. Clean cooking, as I mentioned, that we are working on the aspects of enabling the transition of modern energy into cooking. Clean cooking is not a new subject, but when we look at modern technologies, of course, there is a very large share of people still in India which are reliant on traditional cooking methodologies. There are states in India which have as low percentage as 70 to 80% in their rural areas, which are still have the access of clean cooking, and a larger part is still reliant on old, traditional cooking methodologies. So I think there is an overall challenge in this sector because the whole landscape is new. The stakeholders are new, the technologies are relevantly new. There is a lot of challenge with respect to user perspective, and there's a lot of challenge with respect to these technologies and supply chain, along with it. Of course, there are a lot of challenges because the technologies are new. Do we have enough, backup in terms of, the kind of service and sales support, and those kinds of ground level implementation support. So there's been largely a challenge onto it. How, as an agency, we've looked at is from a programmatic approach where we are not putting clean cooking in a watertight compartment, and we are looking at holistically if we need to enable the transition, what are the different components that we can look at. We famously call it as a clean cooking jigsaw, in which there are multiple pieces that need to be resolved to actually solve the clean cooking puzzle. We look at policy, we look at manufacturing, we look at technology, we look at supply chain, we look at finance, and of course we look at a lot of work on the capacity building and training which is required for implementation on the ground. I think we'll have to look at a large funnel over here. There is, data suggests that there is a lower percentage of women in STEM sector. We have a very low percentage of women professionals who are senior academicians who are training and mentoring the women in STEM. We have a very low percentage of senior management of women in overall in the industry, and I think the ratio worsens when we look at energy sector. So I think problem is at every level and the entire funnel. Like I mentioned earlier, that if we need to look at this problem and look at initiatives to resolve them, it has to be looked at holistically. We need to see at an individual level, that when we look at one person entering the workforce, what are their challenges, and when we are talking about the females, what are specifically their challenges. Secondly, we need to address it from a corporate and a company perspective. Do we have specific programs where we are making those conscious decisions of enhancing women representations? Do we have enabling policies when we say that we want to induct women? Do we have enabling policies and environment? It's very common that as a women entrepreneur, when for meetings and other things, we are visiting a lot of these government offices and all. Um, Maybe I would say that there are visible gaps. If we want more and more women to start working from those places, so we have to look at enabling environment. Of course, we have to also look at the aspect of decision making and the flexibility of I would say working on planning and policies and designing them. Because when you have women behind those designing and planning exercises, a lot can change and impact at a very early stage, rather than bringing it at an implementation stage and then involving women. So yeah. I think I would not have a point here specifically for women in energy sector, but I will have this specific point when you look at women overall. Maybe for energy sector, one specific point entails. So largely when we look at women at leadership roles, of course there's a sense of multitasking and ensuring that both the roles are taken care of very well. That's very hard on the women leaders, founders, and entrepreneurs specifically, and maybe senior professionals also. I think how I balance is that till the time I have my engagement in the office, it's 100% time and a focus that I give over there. And there are secluded hours which is only for my family and my child, because that's also something which has to be balanced and taken care of. Specifically when we are looking, one aspect which changes in the energy aspect is that you don't have a lot of fellow entrepreneurs, fellow leaders that you can work as a group and develop that kind of an ecosystem. And maybe that is something that needs to be taken care of, and this brings back the focus on a lot of these activities where there is an active network of women together, so that there is a peer component that helps and support. So yeah, two things are very important over here. One is that I think I've been emphasizing on this a lot, but I feel that energy as a subject cannot be looked only from a technology perspective. There is an aspect of economics, there's an aspect of sociology, there's an aspect of understanding human behavior, fuel choices, etc. So, one advice that I would give to young professionals is that maybe it's not only people in the technology sector which can look at energy. A lot of other aspects are also involved to make any implementation or successful deployment of technologies in energy sector. And we need people from diverse backgrounds to be a part of it. So again, the young professionals need to look at what's the importance of this sector in the economy overall, what's the future jobs that it can promise, and how the sector can largely impact us as a country, and how we can as a country impact internationally and globally. And that's how the decision making should be. Of course, there needs to be a lot of work on the enabling environment and industry connect when we look at academia, because if you have maybe 15 years back my time, if I had that kind of an industry connect at my academia or college, where we could have people who are from the sector who are coming and addressing us, and we could be like engaging with them and understand that how this is shaping up as a sector, it could have been better. So maybe that is something we should going along look at. uh, First of all, I would thank FSR Global team and the entire program for shaping up this kind of an initiative. Women representation is a subject that needs to be seriously worked upon when we look at country like ours, where we see a relatively low percentage of women in this sector. Um, and it brings the important aspect of such kind of initiatives is that, like I mentioned, that there's a peer group and there is a network, and there's a lot of interlinkages when you bring about the network together. uh, a lot of value add can be made when the story of myself, the peer women who are doing incredible work in the energy sector is brought at the forefront. There can be a lot of work that it can bring and value add in terms of the inspiration that it adds to young professionals who are looking at making their mark in this sector. And this initiative, I suppose, is also becomes very important because we are not only showcasing stories, we are working on sessions which can actually engage the same stakeholders. We can take a wider input from them, and I think the FSR Global team is also interacting with young professionals and trying to understand that what is the kind of gaps which are there, that what are the things that needs to be worked upon and bridged, and that kind of a feedback and a loop that will be created back to the sector and the key stakeholders would be very much important. I think that will be something that will create I won't say like a roadmap, but definitely a building block where we can look at some initiatives and policies to be rolled out further and what can be done. Yeah.